So, a few of my fellow nerds did a triple shot on what they want to see coming up in the MCU, right? And upon watching this video, I said, you know what, I'm going to do a response video to some of the things that they brought up. And a lot of the ideas was very, very pretty interesting indeed. I liked all three guys' standpoints on how they want to see the MCU move forward and the things that they want to have happen. Now, before I go on, I will say that I did get a chance to check out Moon Knight on Disney Plus and also to see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Now, as far as Moon Knight goes, 2 thumbs up. I enjoyed it. I like seeing a story based off of a character or characters that nobody's familiar with. And that's better in series format versus a movie format where you have like so much time to cram in a backstory and you got to set up for sequels down the road. And to agree with what some folks have said, yes, this is what the Eternals should have been. It should have been a Disney Plus miniseries instead of being a 3-hour movie with a bunch of characters that I can't even relate to be honest with you. I mean, your whole purpose of having these characters in the MCU is for them to be relatable. The same way how they did with Tony Stark, aka Iron Man in 2008. Makes his debut, and you see that he is a flawed character. Same way with Spider-Man, regardless of what version, be it Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and now Tom Holland's Spider-Man, to where, hey, Spider-Man could go out and fight crime, and he comes home to an eviction notice. He doesn't have money. He's pretty much a struggle superhero at the end of the day, okay? Even with the X-Men, they're flawed characters. Yeah, they got these powers and these abilities, but humanity still doesn't take kindly to mutants. And that's what I like to see, is characters that are fleshed out. And also for the fact that Oscar Isaac did a damn good job portraying all 3 of the personalities. I mean, I hate to spoil it for those that haven't seen it yet, but the character of Moon Knight has 3 distinct personalities, and it also tackles childhood trauma. It tackles, again, multiple personality disorder. And on top of that, it has some pretty decent fight scenes, and it does dive deep into Egyptian mythology. So give it a good check out if you haven't seen it yet. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, on the other hand, I enjoyed it for what it was, an entertaining MCU film. To me, of course, now. I mean, there's some people out there that feel different. But it felt more like a second season of WandaVision, because this film was basically Wanda Maximoff's film. Well, I'm sorry, The Scarlet Witch. It was basically her movie. I mean, yes, Stephen Strange is on the poster. He's in the description. But this was more of her film. And if you haven't seen it yet, well, here's a little spoiler that I'm going to give out. And go ahead and fast forward like 20, 30 seconds, 40 or a minute or whatever. But here goes. The trailer has you thinking that there is something strange in the neighborhood like Ghostbusters. And Doctor Strange, pun intended, well, I'll say strange twice, he needs Wanda's help. And it makes you go, what is this mysterious force that they're dealing with? Well, you kind of find out when the movie starts, yep, Wanda is the villain. And it's also pretty heartbreaking to know that you guys fought alongside each other to stop Thanos. And you both sacrificed a lot. You both were caught up in the snap and was gone for 5 years. There's a comeback and help the Avengers beat Thanos and close out the Infinity Saga in Endgame. Another thing, though, is the character of America Chavez. I really wish there was more done for her character so people in the audience could feel more invested in her, saying, well, that's her power. She can travel between dimensions by just punching the air. You know, stuff that I used to do when I was a kid, just punch the air after I watched Power Rangers. But hey, in the Illuminati, if you see commercials, it was a dead giveaway that yes, the Illuminati was in this film. Granted, it was a different version of the Illuminati. I mean, you had Mordo, who's different from the Mordo in Earth 616. Earth 616. I'm sorry. And I also want to know what happened to that Mordo. Did he just disappear? I know a lot happened between him, but that's a plot hole they got to fix. But in Universe 838, Mordo is with the Illuminati. One of the characters, Black Bolt, whose words alone, if he speaks, can kill you. He's part of the Illuminati. Haley Atwell reprised her role as Captain Carter from the What If animated series, and she sits with the Illuminati. What's her name? Golly. If you've seen Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau's mother, I can't think of her name right now. She's the Captain Marvel of that universe. And to see Jonathan Krasinski come in as Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four, I say, you know what? They can actually set this up to bring the Fantastic Four in. And, of course, the icing on the cake, which, of course, is no surprise in the trailer, was Patrick Stewart coming in as Charles Xavier. And if you listen very carefully in the background, you can hear a hint of the 1990s X-Men cartoon playing in the background where he rolls up, like literally rolls up in that same yellow hovering wheelchair that he uses in the cartoon. But alas, the Illuminati, I'm telling you right about now, their universe, they took care of Thanos. But all I got to say is, Scarlet Witch, wow. Again, go watch the film. If you haven't seen it already, it's terrible what happens to them. And Sam Raimi did a good job, if you ask me, in how he presents the films. He has this comedic horror element to it, even though the movie, to me, wasn't no borderline horror film, but it did have a lot of Sam Raimi's touch to it and what he does and brings to the movies. Now, things I like to see moving forward with the MCU is, let's make the MCU, let's keep making it fun and keep bringing characters and also wrapping up story arcs. Because after I watched Avengers Endgame, which is like, this is what, 2022, 3 years ago, which was 2019, I was thinking to myself, how can we move forward? How can this keep going? Because Marvel has plenty of characters that they could create and develop a lot of stories behind the stories with. It's just with the approach of how they're going to do it. Because the biggest problem that I see is being able to capture lightning in a bottle more than once. 2008, when Robert Downey Jr. was casted as Iron Man, well, that wasn't the first choice, it was Tom Cruise, for those that don't know. Marvel Studios, before they got bought out by Disney the following year, 2009, was taking a gamble because of Robert Downey Jr.'s past activities, his past arrests and DUIs. But, hey, it worked out in the end, and it worked out even better for Robert Downey Jr. So, lightning was capturing the ball at one time. And, of course, we had a couple other films like Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, the First Avenger, before we got the Avengers of 2012. That was lightning capturing the bottle for the second time. So the problem that you have is, how can we move forward? And in between then, there were a couple of hits and misses with a few films like Iron Man 3 and maybe Thor: The Dark World. And it was really, it bounced back with Captain America: The Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy. But even then, it just felt like, how can we keep capturing the same lightning in the bottle? That is a difficult task, indeed, and I understand that. And of course, after the Infinity Saga ends, lightning was capturing the bottle once again with Spider-Man No Way Home for the obvious reasons. Fan service, and we finally got to see Tom Holland's Spider-Man coming to his own the same way Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield came into their own as their own versions of Spider-Man. In other words, I'm glad they cut off Tom Holland's Spider-Man's umbilical cord and let him branch out to be his own Spider-Man. And again, what I want to see come up real soon is, if you're going to keep making these characters, hey, again, make them interesting, but at the same time, let's leave identity politics and orientation politics and all this other unnecessary stuff out of it. Let's make it fun. Let's make mine Marvel, or Excelsior, as the late Stan Lee will always say. And with the upcoming Thor: Love and Thunder, not gonna lie to you, I don't like the way how Thor has been portrayed in the MCU. He's been portrayed as this all muscles, this muscular blonde that's just a big buffoon. And I at least want to see him have a redeeming quality in Thor: Love and Thunder. But then, of course, that's being outshined by the fact that they're bringing in Lady Thor, played by Natalie Portman. But I really hope they have a formula to where both Jane Foster and Thor can coexist as two Thors in this film, instead of having one outshining the other. Because my biggest thing is, when you look at Thor in the comics versus how he is in the MCU, his comic book version is way much more serious than his MCU counterpart. And I'm going, stop making him just this big doofus with muscles. He's more than that. Also, the way how the Hulk got done in the MCU. I understand that they had to establish Thanos, like really establish like how much of a force he is to be reckoned with in the MCU. But just to have Hulk be scared and not want to come out and play no more, and downgrade him to Professor Hulk, that's a slap in the face to the character itself. Because anybody who's read any of the Hulk comics, especially Planet Hulk and the World War Hulk comics back in the mid-2000s, they know how powerful the Hulk can really get. And just to say that the angrier he gets, the stronger he gets, is an understatement. You had to read these issues for yourselves just to see how dangerous Hulk really is. Even in the comic books, Thanos says that, yeah, I know I can take this dude, but I don't want to throw them hands with him because he will give me that work. I can beat him, but he'll still give me that work. And I just want to just continue to just, again, if you flesh out characters, like I understand we have Mahershala Ali coming in as Blade, but my biggest fear is having a PG-13 Blade. Now, for those that haven't seen the Eternals, Mr. Ali does come in as Blade in the last end credit scene. And for those that also see the Eternals, knows that, hey, instead of us getting a giant fluffy cloud as Galactus, as big as they made the Celestials, especially Acheron, there's no excuse to why we cannot see Galactus in his comic book format on big screen. Because Eternals perfectly set up to bring Galactus into the MCU. And then after watching the Eternals, it makes a lot of sense as to why Thanos did what he did. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, if they're watching this video, and I'm trying to get to the point of it, hey, watch the Eternals and watch the MCU films, and you say, oh, okay, it does make a lot of sense why Thanos snapped his fingers. Wow. Especially when Earth itself is a celestial by the name of Tiamat. Sorry if that's a spoiler, but hey, the movie's been out for over a year. You can still watch it on Disney Plus if you're interested, but hey. But my biggest thing is, again, making a PG-13 Blade, because Wesley Snipes, back in 1998, he set the bar high on how to portray a character such as Blade. And when you finally see Blade played by Mr. Ali himself, there's going to be comparisons between his version of Blade and Wesley Snipes' version of Blade. But again, Snipes, he set the bar very high for Marvel to make a successful comic book film. Another thing too, speaking of Fantastic Four, when I mentioned Mr. Krasinski, whoever does this Fantastic Four film needs to give them the proper treatment versus the last three films, especially that god-awful 2015 film that we saw. Like, good grief, that movie was so horrible that I saw it in the 99-cent DVD rack in Walmart back in 2016. Like, God, this is horrible. I mean, you have material to make this stuff as accurate as possible without being political with it. Because when you leave, because of course, and I hope they understand that when you leave the politics out of it, that's what brings your audience in. Even for your casual fans, your horrorcore fans that know, the comic book accurate fans, you know, yeah, they know what to expect, and there's going to be some criticisms from them. But your fans that know nothing about these characters, at least make it to the point to where you don't make the characters, you don't make your fans feel dumb, and they don't have to, you know, read in between lines. But, you know, that's just my take on how I want to see the MCU going forward, and also how I feel about Moon Knight. How I also felt about Doctor Strange. And granted, the way it ended, it's going to be a third film. I want to see how it's going to move forward with this Secret Invasion saga and how they're going to bring in Kang the Conqueror. And just a little curious, who is going to be the next big bad that's behind the scenes pulling the strings? We know it was Thanos in the Infinity Saga, but that's going to be quite a challenge in itself for Marvel to pull off, because the Infinity Saga set the bar high on how to do 10 years worth of storytelling, and Thanos set the bar really high as being a big bad pulling all the strings. Next to Eric Killmonger in Black Panther, who set the standard and set the bar high on how to make a, excuse me, allergies by the way, make a relatable villain that you can sympathize with. But anyways, that's just my take on it. And see you on the next one.